Victorian households are being told they can live without gas.
It's heading us right in the correct direction. We have a climate emergency.
From 2024, all new homes and government buildings in the state will be electric, and it's igniting some intense debate.
This announcement really is taking choice away from Victorian households.
Well, I think I won't be ordering steak in Victoria because, God, you can't have a sealed steak without gas, mate.
But in outer suburban Melbourne, Emma Kimpton's backing the Victorian government's push to disconnect. She's already made the switch to electric heating and cooling.
We decided that because a lot of people were saying that it was cheaper to run the ducted reverse cycle air conditioning, that we would go electric, and we have seen a significant decrease in our bills, which is always good.
50% of the gas that's used in Victoria is used in the home. That's a big amount of gas that's used.
Yes, that's it. Fantastic.
The Victorian government says saving the environment's at stake. It says getting people off gas is the right recipe to reduce emissions.
Going all electric will save a new homeowner $1,000 off their energy bill each and every year.
Victorians are the biggest gas users in the country, with more than 2 million households and businesses reliant on it. It's not the only state getting off gas. Earlier this year, the ACT was the first government to legislate a gas ban for new homes. But New South Wales, Queensland, South Australia and Western Australia won't be following suit.
The state has the jurisdiction.
Some local councils are trying to push ahead anyway. Last week, the City of Sydney voted to investigate gas bans in new buildings.
We need to put the planet and the future first. As far as I'm concerned.
It's not enforceable. If they want to go through that process, that's a matter for them. In New South Wales, about 7% of emissions come from the production of gas. In Victoria, it's 18%.
Energy experts like the Grattan Institute's Tony Wood believe other states will eventually get households off gas.
Gas that used to be plentiful and cheap is no longer plentiful and cheap. And so for the majority of people, when their gas appliances need to be replaced, converting to electricity, they would save money. The second thing is that they would contribute to emissions reduction. And for Victoria, household emissions from burning gas in our homes is a big deal. And so we don't meet our targets unless we get off burning gas.
We're seeing the industry pushing it back because obviously self-interest ruled their decisions.
As Australia shuts down coal, gas is picking up the load.
It's 50% cleaner, so together with renewables, it gets emissions down.
The gas lobby is fighting back and is pointing the finger at coal.
The emissions from Victoria's brown coal-fired power generators are about 6 times that of the emissions from household use of gas. That should be where the government should be focusing its attention.
Tony Wood accepts emissions will probably go up in Victoria in the short term as households get off gas, but says in the long term they will go down.
The emissions intensity of our electricity is higher. Now, however, over the next little while, as those coal-fired power stations close, as they will and as they schedule to, then the whole equation changes. And so if you move to electricity today and over the next 10 years, you'd be way ahead in terms of reducing emissions.
Emissions are one thing, but dwindling supply is also another.
What we're seeing actually is supply of gas in Victoria is declining. It's set to decline around almost by half between now and 2027. And we need more supply actually in Victoria to be able to continue to meet demand from households, from industry and manufacturing.
Tim Buckley from Clean Energy Finance points out that gas is also being exported from Victoria.
So 80% of the gas in Eastern Australia is used by the gas industry itself for export purposes. So the idea that we're running out of gas is a deliberate political misinformation campaign by the gas industry so they can make even more money.
Emma Kimpton gets advice from social media on how to save money by going all electric. She says some members have been hit with fees of more than $1,000 to abolish their gas connections.
People who are struggling and the people who can't necessarily afford a lot more expenses in their bills are going to have to pay for the gas to be kept on because they don't have any other choice.
This is actually a recipe for reduced energy costs for everyone in Australia. If it's done well, if it's done badly, as usual, the poorest in our country will suffer the most.
That's because there'll be fewer households and businesses left to share the network costs that we all pay for as part of our energy bills. The estimated value of the East Coast gas distribution network is about $12 billion. And there's a big question mark over whether governments, the companies that own it or consumers would cover the costs of any stranded assets.
It's really critical that the regulator get ahead of the curve and actually serve the people of Australia, not to serve the gas pipeline owners. They shouldn't be gouging Australians for the next 10, 20, 30, 40, 50 years in order to redeem their investments.
The government need to perhaps look at their infrastructure and make sure that it can support a no-gas economy.
Emma Kimpton plans to disconnect from gas as soon as she can afford an induction cooktop. But she says struggling households won't be able to make the transition alone.
It is quite difficult to get the gas removed from your property. So I think the government perhaps need to look at, if they really want gas gone, how they're going to help people remove it.